Hello again, YouTube. I hope you're all keeping well, healthy and happy out there. Recently in the UK, they've introduced this Investigatory Powers Bill, which is a surveillance bill enabling not only law enforcement agencies, such as the police, but also intelligence services access to user data in the UK, and methods of access which are unconventional, shall we say. And this is troublesome on many fronts for many reasons, not least of which is the privacy concern. But more importantly, there's also the fact that this will now be legally acceptable. Things like hacking will become acceptable. And I think it demonstrates the level to which we have enabled this superstate and its structure to instill itself and install itself into government. And so we've got bigger government, bigger surveillance, big brother state, right? Which is not the healthiest of things because it casts suspicion on every citizen. There are also other aspects to this which I find very, very problematic, I would say, in terms of the morals and the ethics of it all. But we'll get into that. So let's start off with Paul Burnell, who is a leading IT lecturer at the University of East Anglia. He said the following: "The bill legitimizes most of what would normally be called mass surveillance, which is already taking place. The breadth of powers allowed, from equipment interference, i.e. hacking, to internet connection records, which is browsing history, is breathtaking. The biggest dangers come from the possibility of political change. We're putting in powers and infrastructure that could easily be misused by a future government." Now, this next bit is incredibly important. "These powers are actually better suited for monitoring and controlling political dissidents than catching criminals and terrorists. They're ideal for an authoritarian clampdown." Now, what I've been speaking about quite extensively in most of the videos that I've made thus far has been authoritarianism and its dangers. So here we've got a bill that's going to legitimize authoritarianism on the part of the government and its state apparatus. So, if anything, this should cause us serious concern, right? Again, for many, many reasons, not least of which is individual privacy and the rights to privacy, but also, more importantly, there's also the question of who's going to have access to this data. And we're going to go into that. So organisations including the Food Standards Agency and the Department of Work and Pensions will be able to see UK citizens' entire browsing history. The Investigatory Powers Bill keeps a full list of Internet Connection Records, ICRs, which will be made available to a wide range of government bodies, right? And as we said, it includes the Food Standards Agency, the Gambling Commission, councils and the Welsh Ambulance Services, National Health Service Trust. So this is going to grant an immense amount of power over individuals' personal information to branches and agencies which are not linked to the intelligence services, which do nothing for law enforcement, but will have access to your data. Right? Now, why is this pertinent, you might wonder? Well, we have to ask, in terms of having authority or the perception of power, what does that cause in people? As I discussed in some of my previous videos, and if you haven't watched my video on order followers, you need to go and watch that. But I'll briefly explain here exactly what tends to happen when you put people in positions of authority. They tend to abuse their power, right? This has been proven multiple times in constant scientific studies, right? Not least of which, of course, is Milgram's experiment, the Stanford prison experiment, to name two, which have been repeated many, many times, and the results conclusively proven in terms of the human capability to misuse and abuse power and authority. So, let's put it this way. We're trusting people. We're saying, first of all, the first premise that we're starting with is that human beings are inherently bad or potentially can become bad or do evil acts, right? That's our premise from the outset. Okay? Why is that the premise from the outset? Because if people need to be spied on, then you're saying there's a problem with the people, right? Okay. So if we accept that premise, I don't, and I don't think any of you should either, but let's say we accept that premise. Okay. So next, we then are trusting or entrusting a government agency or body which comprises of those same individuals that we don't trust to surveil us, right? To police us, we're putting in charge individuals from the same pool of people that we're saying we don't trust. So this is a this is a paradox of sorts, right? It's oxymoronic almost. It is, to my mind, illogical as both a starting premise and a conclusion in terms of how we can best protect our citizens, right? But that's what they want to do. I mean, I can't see how the Gambling Commission could possibly enhance state security. Maybe that's just me. I mean, I've worked in the intelligence field, but maybe it's not apparent to me in some sense. So perhaps the government could enlighten us in regards to that. Now, this next thing I'm coming to is quite important because we just talked about the trust factor when it comes to people who will hold this information, right? Are they likely to abuse it? Quite possibly. In fact, I would say almost definitively yes, right? So, how do we know that this tends to happen? Well, let's use a blueprint that we can work on from examples which have already happened. Provable, demonstrable examples, okay? And what we're going to look to is an agency in the United States of America called the National Reconnaissance Office, which is an intelligence service. It's a branch of intelligence, right? So let's look at whether these folks can be trusted when we give up our privacy, we give up our rights, because idiotic people use the phrase, oh, we've got nothing to hide. On that point, let me say this very quickly before we delve into this. Edward Snowden said the following, and I completely agree with him on this. Saying that you have nothing to hide is like saying you have nothing to say when it comes to the realm of freedom of speech, right? So you're giving up your right. Every time you say, I have nothing to hide, it doesn't matter whether you have anything to hide or not. The question is, should other people have a right to your information? Not just your information, but your family's information, your wife's information, your children's information, right? The ability to access your webcam, the ability to access your microphones, the ability to access their webcams and microphones. And this is going to become important to you in a second, and you'll understand why. So we've got an article here from Josh Hicks from April 22nd, 2014, which I believe was in the Washington Post. The federal government spy satellite agency failed to alert authorities after some of its employees and contractors admitted during polygraph tests to crimes including child molestation and lying on security clearance questionnaires. According to one of the reports, an Air Force Lieutenant Colonel admitted during a 2010 lie detector test to touching a child in a sexual way and downloading child pornography on his work computer. 30 individuals who took the National Reconnaissance Office lie detector test from 2009 through 2012 admitted to child abuse or using child pornography, according to this report. Understand that a second. Okay, agencies like this are whom you're entrusting your personal data, your personal security, and that of your family, your children, your spouses. If these are the kinds of things that these people get up to, which I think we can safely say is an abuse of power, and these are the types of people, potentially, that the UK and the British government wants to allow to have even further extensive powers. Again, I don't know about you, but I don't trust those people due to historical precedent. An agency lawyer told co-workers not to bother reporting confessions by a federal contractor of child molestation, viewing child pornography, and sexting with a child. You'll have to excuse me, I'm a little bit upset. This isn't easy to read through. The National Reconnaissance Office's lawyers at the time told the Inspector General's investigators, and listen to this, this is why I'm saying this is an abuse of power. You must pay attention here. We are not legally obligated to report child abuse to DOJ or law enforcement organisations. So what they're saying is they are above the law. They weren't even prosecuted. Nothing was ever pursued legally against these people. And these are the people that you want to grant powers to? Excuse me? Have you all suddenly lost your damn minds? Look, if there is a problem with these kinds of crimes in society, and you're choosing people from that pool again, right, from a corrupted and decaying society, we're not going to be employing the very best people, are we? We're not going to be employing moral, ethical, upstanding people in all cases. Of course not. And how easy would it be for a foreign power, speaking from an intelligence perspective, how easy would it be for a foreign power to use that information that they may have on these individuals to blackmail them into revealing state secrets perhaps, or other various things? So from a security standpoint, this is completely batshit insane. Not to mention the moral and ethical argument. I mean, that's That's horrifying. That is utterly horrifying. The fact that these... I won't even do them the service of calling them people, okay? But it doesn't stop there. That's horrifying enough. I know that you guys are probably reeling from hearing that, right? But let's look at another side of this if we can. If we can come away from the horrors of these abuses of power. Okay? There are other types of corruption that occur. So, Trevor Paglen, in an article in February of 2009, wrote an article called Blank Spots on the Map, The Dark Geography of the Pentagon's Secret World. In a Washington Post article, it was reported, you'll have to excuse me, I'm still processing what we spoke about earlier, but in a Washington Post article, it was reported that the National Reconnaissance Office had quietly hoarded between $1 billion and $1.7 billion in unspent funds, without informing the Pentagon or Congress. In total, the NRO, the National Reconnaissance Office, had accumulated over $3.8 billion. If you adjust that for inflation, that's approximately $5.9 billion in 2016. Reports of an NRO slush fund were also true, according to former CIA General Counsel Jeffrey Smith, who led the investigation. His inquiry revealed that the National Reconnaissance Office for years had accumulated very substantial amounts as what they called a rainy day fund. So we've got financial corruption. We've got child abuse. We've got, you name it, they are infected with it. And to date, nothing has been done about it. No individuals have ever been prosecuted. No one's been brought to trial. There haven't even been any real serious internal inquiries inside that particular organisation. The NRO, the National Reconnaissance Office. Let me tell you something interesting about these guys. They have a lot of interesting insignia, right? Badges of honour, so to speak. I would call them, due to these sort of actions, dishonour, right? But they have this one image, okay? And if you look for it online, you'll find it, which is very ominous. And it states on it, "We own the night." Okay? Implying that they have a sort of a predatory dominance over others. Okay? I'm going to say right now that you do not own the night. Okay? So if employees of the National Reconnaissance Office are listening to this, if you find any of these types of activities which we've spoken about taking place, it is your duty as moral individuals to report them, or more importantly, to bring them to the attention of law enforcement. I don't care what your higher-ups tell you in regards to this. If you're just following their orders in order to cover up the crimes of these sorts of people, then you're an idiotic, immoral order follower. I have zero respect for you. Absolutely none. If that's the kind of person you are. If you are a moral individual and you've gotten yourself into this type of agency, you may want to re-examine your life to determine whether or not you are doing the right thing. Now, I know that the British intelligence services are not the National Reconnaissance Office, okay? But here's the thing. This is why I'm bringing that up as an example. We have an agreement with the United States called the Five Eyes Agreement, which includes all the major Western powers. Inside their intelligence communities, they have to share intelligence and information, and also personnel. We've got a similar setup with NATO. And so for this reason, there's inter-agency cooperation, interdepartmental cooperation between agencies. So there are some links there between our intelligence personnel and US intelligence personnel. But moreover, if that can happen in the United States, with the checks and balances and the oversights they've got, what are the odds that it is happening in the UK? Or that it may happen in the UK? Right? What are the odds of that? I'd say pretty high. Okay? We've already had recently the child abuse scandals involving Jimmy Savile at the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation. There have been proven allegations regarding certain political figures in the past, perhaps even presently. There are serious questions about local councils who have admittedly lesser power, such as in the example of Rotherham, which involved child abuse. So please tell me, what do you think are the odds that what was going on in the NRO is happening perhaps with MI6 or with GCHQ or with MI5? When looked at from that perspective, it does seem to suggest, doesn't it, that there may be some level of that occurring in perhaps all or any of these agencies. And these are the people that you want to grant some power to, right? That they don't have any right to have. In fact, they'll have overarching powers. So it's important to keep in mind that you're not just giving up these rights that you've got for freedom of speech or privacy rights to some absolute bastions of trustworthiness. You are giving up these rights to agencies and personnel that are potentially compromised. So, where is the sense in that, is my question. Okay, where is the sense in that? You've got financial corruption, you've got moral corruption. How far does it have to go before we say, actually, do you know what? We can't trust those people. We shouldn't be giving up our individual liberties and our individual rights in these ways, where we allow these abuses to take place, these abuses of power. Okay? Now, I'm going to be including all the source material in the links below, but it is important that you do your own research in regards to this also. Okay? Because dreadful things are taking place all around you right now. And I'm willing to bet dollars to donuts that you folks have never heard about any of this. Okay? because they won't let you know about it. Who's covering it up? Well, primarily you've got these media corporations that own the TV stations, that own the newspapers, that prevent the majority of this information getting out there. These articles that I'm citing for, they're probably lucky if they get any coverage in page 30 in their newspapers. And maybe even then it's probably a tiny column. The front page news, that's never going to happen. Okay, it's never going to be front page news unless it's brought to light in a very serious and dramatic fashion by the people. When the people become outraged, then governments have no choice but to act. But right now, most of you, right? And by most of you, I'm not talking about my viewers, because believe it or not, I've noticed something spectacular. And that is that people that watch my videos or watch the videos of certain others who are well informed, who are presenting great information, accurate information to the people, they are outraged. They are doing something about it. Okay, but the mass public doesn't know. If I go out there on the street today and ask anybody if they're aware of these facts, they will tell me they don't know about it. Because they're plugged into the system. They believe in the system. They're having a mass hallucination. They are under a hypnotic trance. I've said this many, many times. And some people have said, oh, well, you're speaking contemptuously of those people. You're correct. I am. I always will speak contemptuously of people who do not awaken themselves to the facts. Provable, logical, true facts. Okay? And if those folks don't do that, well, do you expect me to have compassion for people like that? How can I? When they allow abuses of power on the innocent. How can anyone? I mean, don't get me wrong, we want to approach others with the best of intentions and we want to believe the best of them. But if I tell someone something and they refuse to understand it because the truth is too painful for them to process and handle, namely that they've paid in all their life into a system which is destructive and it's damaging their core, if they refuse to understand that, that is where my empathy and compassion stop. I'm never going to stop myself trying to educate people about these things. But the responsibility is not mine alone, right? The responsibility is on all of us, individually, as a society also, to awaken to the fact that perhaps governments don't have our best interests at heart. Just pointing that out. So we were talking a little bit about this mass hallucination, this delusion, right? It's interesting to me that the hallucination that we're experiencing as a society, not those of us who are, again, slightly more familiar with objective facts, but the majority of people who are trapped in this spell, if you will, under this spell, don't appear to understand that their own psychology has been manipulated and used against them. And part of that has been done through the manipulation of language. Okay, because language is how we communicate with each other. using symbols, right? Words are nothing more than symbols, even spoken words, right? You'll understand what I'm saying if you speak English, but if I was speaking Chinese, you wouldn't know what the hell I was talking about, right? So, otherwise, if words were universal, you know, we'd all understand each other. We don't. We have to be taught words, right? A, B, C, and so on, right? When we start to compose words, we learn from that. So it's constant exchange symbology through which we create the structures in our mind, right? But it's also important at this point to know what these words mean, and I'll end with this, right? So let's talk about the origin of the word hallucination. It comes from the Latin hallucinare, which means to go astray in thought, or to be deceived, or to have illusions. Okay? The word illusion itself comes from the Latin illudere, which means to mock, to deceive, to be delusional. The word delusion comes from the Latin deludere, which means, again, a deception. So it's all about deceiving, deception, and mocking. Okay? This is what these three words mean. So when I'm speaking about them, understand the root meanings. Deception. Okay? Hypnosis. What is hypnosis? We've spoken a lot about hypnosis. It comes from the Latin hypnos and the English suffix osis, which means an abnormal condition. So hypnosis is an abnormal sleep condition, or an abnormal condition of being asleep. This is why we use the term awake. Those who are awake are not hypnotized, right? Psychosis, the word psychosis, which I've used many times through my videos to again explain the mass psychotic delusion that people are under, that comes from the the Greek psyche, meaning mind, and the English suffix again, osis, meaning abnormal condition. So it's an abnormal condition of the mind, right? We've spoken at times about neurosis, which comes from the Greek neuron, meaning nerves, and again the English osis, abnormal condition of the nerves, right? Are you getting the hang of this, right? You've got to break the words down to their original etymologies in Latin. There is a reason, by the way, right? I don't want to sound like some tinfoil hatter on this, but this is actually provable. There's a reason why they stopped teaching Latin in schools. The Bible originally was written in Latin. They stopped printing it in Latin at a certain point. Okay, people started to avoid learning Latin because they just view it as a dead language. But it's so incredibly important because it is the foundation of the English language and most European languages. All our words are created from primarily from the Latin or the Greek, right? So it's necessary that we become familiar with those origins, if only to better inform ourselves when we speak to each other. Because most of the time people just have and you'll notice this in your own mind, by the way. Most of the times when you talk to other people or listen to other people, you're hearing words, but you've just got a vague understanding of what they mean. We have to reacquaint ourselves with language. A lot of people don't know that. They don't understand that. In a final word, sorcerer. Okay? Sorcerer. Okay? S-O-R-C-E-R-E-R. Sorcery or sorcerer. Okay? One who influences fate or fortune. From the Latin sors, meaning fortune or fate. and the Old French word sorcier, meaning manipulator of fortune. I'm telling you that one for a reason, and that is because the people that are presently manipulating human beings on a grand scale, who include government, intelligence agencies, media corporations, corporate monopolies that are not true corporations at all, right? They're not operating inside a free market. These people have cozied up quite extensively with government and governmental agencies. Okay? So they're monopolies, they're oligarchies to a great extent. And again, if you break down those words, you'll see that there's the root meaning of anything being arche coming from archos, right? Meaning, that's the Greek word, meaning rulers. Okay, so we're constantly being ruled. You've got this upper tier in society, which is composed of master manipulators or sorcerers. Okay, and people find that strange. People think I'm ranting at this point. I'm not. Believe you me, right? I can draw a direct line using the tools of language to explain to you how this manipulation works. They are the sorcerers. There is a definitive occult influence. Somebody asked me this recently. I'm only touching on this for this reason. It just came to mind. Somebody asked me this question: why do you refer to yourself as an occult philosopher? And I thought to myself, that's very, very interesting that you would ask that question, because you clearly do not understand the influence of the occult in greater society. The word occult comes from the Latin root word, which is occultare, meaning hidden knowledge, right? To hide, to obfuscate, to hide from sight, from view. It's the same root from where we get oculus, right? To see with the eye. So, and I'm not trying to get all tinfoil hatterish here, okay? Believe you me, that's the last thing I ever do in any of my videos. But I'm pointing out the root meanings and the origins. You can verify this yourself. All you have to do is go out there and buy an etymology dictionary. Or you could even, perform an internet search or whatever it is to find out the root meaning of these words, right? So the people in the upper echelons truly are sorcerers, because they're manipulating people's fortune and fate. And if you think I'm being perhaps metaphorical in regards to that, believe me, I'm not. Okay? I spoke previously many times about how easy it is to manipulate individuals or influence individuals or persuade individuals using simple scientific techniques that have been proven multiple times by market researchers, okay, by clinical psychologists and social psychologists. Okay, and these are studies that have been confirmed each time any of these experiments were carried out. So don't come to me and tell me that I'm exaggerating about something, or that I shouldn't use a particular terminology to describe myself because I have a certain awareness of things. Okay? And what I'm choosing to do is to share that information so that you guys become more fully informed about exactly what's happening. But the Investigatory Powers Bill, the important thing about this, let me get back on track with what we were speaking about and I'll end it here, right? Is that you must oppose this. Okay, for the reasons we've spoken about. These people can't be trusted, right? If we don't trust singular individuals, why the hell are we trusting collectives of individuals? Do we think that they're going to behave better when every scientific study that we've seen shows that when people are given power, they abuse it? Okay? So this is why I'm saying what I'm saying. Oppose the bill. I'm going to include below a link to the petition that is presently going around in order to block this bill. Okay? To signify to Parliament that you will not, if you're a British citizen, you will not accede your power to government. Okay? Anyway, I think that will do it for this video. But if you've watched thus far, thank you so much. I love all your great comments so far, and all the likes and the subscriptions and everything else. You guys have been phenomenal so far in supporting my work. I cannot thank you enough. And I hope that you'll continue to do so, and I hope that I can continue to provide you with content that is valuable in some sense and informative. Thank you so much. Take good care.